Albuquerque, New Mexico. Thank you so much for everybody being here. Meeting will be very fast paced this morning or today. We'll go bring off with the introduction to my left.
Good morning. Good morning. Can you hear me? Oh, this is cool. Good morning. My name is Sharon Hickey, and Sharon Salazar Hickey, and I'm the commissioner from District 4. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Cherzo Lopez, Vice Chair for State Game Commission at Large.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Fernando Clemente. I'm State Game Commissioner at Large as well.
Good morning, Mike Sloan, Director of the agency.
Commissioner Pulver.
Good morning, Commissioner Fulfer from Lee County District 1.
Thank you. And we'll start at the beginning of the room with Colonel Simple.
Good morning, Vice Chair, Commissioners, Director, members of the public. My name is Tim Simble, Colonel for Field Operations Division, Game and Fish.
Good morning, Commissioners, members of the public. Stuart Riley, Chief Wildlife, Game and Fish. Good morning, Commissioners, members of the public. I'm Jeremy Martin, I'm the General Counsel of the Department.
Good morning, Commissioners and members of the public. I'm William Cassell. I'm Deputy General Counsel for the Department.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ben Neary. I'm the Mexico Wildlife Federation.
Good morning, all. Barry Creeder, member of the public, Los Alamos. Good morning, Vice Chair, members of the Commission, staff. My name is Martin Tiny. I am from Wadi Village, Pueblo, Seaboard County. Inside the district, it's not having on this commission. I am a board member of Mexico Backcountry Adventures and Anglers, and the Northwest regional representative.
Lift down the back.
Good morning, I'm Wendy Bird.
I can remember this one.
Morning, Carrie Romero on behalf of the New Mexico Council of Outfitters and Guides.
Randy Davis, CS Cimarron, New Mexico. The Kennedy Film Office in Cimarron, New Mexico.
Good morning, everybody. Paul and Doug from the Southern Major for the Department of Game and Fish.
Good morning, Blake Santos, Northern Major, Game and Fish.
Good morning, everybody. Star Gonzalez, Game and Fish.
Morning, Commissioners, members of the public. Tony Johnston, Shooting Program Coordinator, Department of Game and Fish.
And good morning, Commissioners, members of the public, staff, Ryan Dar, New Mexico Department of Game and Fish.
Good morning, Commissioners and members of the public. Tristana Bickford, I am the Assistant Chief of Education for the department.
Good morning, Commission, members of the public. I'm James Pittman. I'm the Chief of the Information Education Division for Game and Fish.
Good morning, everyone. Dan Rubin with the Attorney General's Office.
Thank you so much. And Mr. Secretary, would you call the roll, please?
Vice Chair Lopez.
Here.
Commissioner Clemente.
Present.
Commissioner Fulfer.
He's muted on his.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I'm here.
Commissioner Garcia is excused. Commissioner Salazar.
Present.
You have a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Director. And as we go on to the approval of the agenda, is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented? And that's posted on the website.
Vice Chair, and so moved.
Motion by Commissioner Salazar Hickey. Is there a second?
A second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, motion passed unanimously. Okay, we'll go on to item number 5, consent agenda. We'll start with subtopic A, approval of minutes from April 23rd, 2023 meetings. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of April 28th, 2023 meeting.
I so move to approve the minutes from April 28th, 2023.
Is there a second?
I will second the motion.
There's a second, a motion, a second. If the secretary would call the roll, please.
Commissioner Salazar Hickey,
Yes.
Commissioner Polk,
Yes.
Commissioner Clemente,
Yes.
Vice Chair Lopez,
Yes.
motion passes.
We'll go on to subtopic B under the consent agenda, item revocation.
Vice Chair Lopez?
Yes, sir.
If I may, could we take a, let's say, 5-minute break? I wish to discuss this item with you outside the purview of the public. And if Director Sloan could join us for a few minutes, yes, for a brief recess.
And this regarding the revocations?
Yes, yes, sir.
On the consent or the advice of the Attorney General, President representing the department, we have a motion for a recess. Is there a motion for recess?
I hereby move for a recess, but for 5 minutes only.
Is there a second?
I will second that motion.
The secretary take the roll, please.
Sure, but I'm not convinced it requires some motions. Okay, recess. Fine. Commissioner Salazar Hickey,
Yes.
Commissioner Garcia, excuse, Commissioner Polk,
Yes.
Commissioner Clemente,
Yes.
Vice Chair Lopez,
Yes,
motion passes.
we have recess for 5 minutes.
Yes.
Members of the public, Commissioner, Mr. Director, we have now entered our hearing. We're now back in order after a brief recess with the Attorney General to discuss some logistics, so to say. We'll continue with part B of item number 5 of revocation. Is there a motion to accept the revocations as presented?
I hereby move to accept the revocations as presented by Colonel Jim Simbal.
Is there a second?
I will second the motion.
Is there any discussion? Okay. I do have one item of discussion to discuss with the commission, members of the public. And I believe it's practice we do mention the names of the individuals on the revocation list. So I would like to mention or discuss the case of Victor Porran. We can have Colonel Simbal come up, please. Morning, Colonel. Once again, thank you for all the work that you and your staff do in enforcing the wildlife laws and keeping the public safe and preserving the wildlife for future generations here in New Mexico. I do have one question here on Victor Porran. I did notice upon reviewing this revocation list that he has a high number of points, correct?
Vice Chair, Commissioners, yes, that is correct. It looks like a total of 65.
Okay. Is it 65 points for one incident, correct? All the charges were in one incident?
That is correct, for this one single case.
Based on what I see here compared to other people listed on the revocation list in front of me, he does have a very high number of points. And being that, New Mexico's wildlife is a precious resource to all members of New Mexico, stakeholders, public, and future generations, I believe that having a 3-year revocation, for a 65-point violation within the same occurrence is severely egregious. And therefore, I believe that the revocation should be moved from 3 years to 5 years in order for the individual to have all his recommendations, all privileges of hunting and fishing revoked.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, if you so wish, you have the option to convene a closed session to deliberate on the merits of this particular license, if you so wish.
And if we can discuss it as executive session, if not, we can continue in the public meeting.
The commission always has the option of continuing in an open session, but you do under the Open Meetings Act, because this is a deliberation on an adjudicatory issue, you can go into closed session if you want to confirm more freely about what you feel the proper decision should be with respect to the number of years.
Is there any, discussion of going to executive session to discuss, this particular case or any cases?
Yes, Mr. Chair, and of course, what closed session does, it facilitates me providing legal advice if you have any questions as to what in the record you can consider any particular case.
Is there any discussion or to go into executive session?
Mr. Vice Chair, commissioners, members of the public, thank you very much for your legal advice. Attorney General, or Assistant Attorney General Rubin. I appreciate the ability to go into a closed session for private discussions. Our past practice has been to discuss the facts of the case, the merits of the case when changing or not going with the department's recommendation. And I'm, in the spirit of transparency, I'm very comfortable in continuing our discussions now rather than going into closed session. So that said, I'd like to ask, Vice Chair, I'd like to ask Colonel Simbo a few questions about the facts, not just the points. I recognize your concern of the number of points. 65 is the most that we've seen on this particular day. But we've seen 65 and more in other days before as well. I'd like to focus on the facts. Colonel Simbo, can you please give us what was in the record that was presented at the hearing? What is the public record regarding Victor Corral?
Vice Chair, Commissioners, so this specific individual, Victor Corral, he did not request a hearing, so it never went through that process. So basically what we're basing this off of is the facts in the case report.
What were the facts?
Okay, so this individual, I don't know if the dates are important, but on 12/10 is when this happened, 2021, and he had shot Barbary sheep and was seen by an RP to go up, walk up to it and ground check it and then walk away. So that's your waste of game. And then proceeded later on to shoot and harvest a different Barbary sheep. So that's your exceeding the bag limit, and also unlawful possession of said Barbary sheep. And when he was checked in the field and asked for his hunting license, he produced an expired deer license.
How expired was it?
Let's see. He stated that he killed the deer in the first rifle hunt, which would have been October 30th through November 3rd. And only the antler was tagged on it. Should have a copy of it. What I don't have with me today is the copy of the attachment, so a copy of the tag. But an expired deer license that wouldn't have been good for that. So
they've been about a month expiration?
Most of these hunts for the rifle hunts are going to run, those 5-day periods, and some of the areas have 2 to 3 different rifle hunts. So within a month.
Okay.
And that's going to lead to the failure to properly tag, and therefore subsequently the unlawful possession of that mule deer.
Any further questions for Colonel Sims?
Just for being more clear, it was what he had harvested, it was Barbary sheep, correct? And on the tag that he presented, it was for a mule deer.
So 2 separate critters. He had shot a Barbary sheep and was witnessed walking up to it, looking at it, and then leaving it, walking away, and then shooting and harvesting a second Barbary sheep, which was taken. And that's your exceeding the bag limit. When our officers went, and as part of the investigation, he had this the mule deer that was tagged with an expired tag. So 2 separate occasions. The Barbary sheep did not have a deer tag on it.
Thank you.
On 2 separate occasions.
Two separate animals, I should say, but
Yeah.
yes,
Oh, two separate animals, but, so the second Barbary sheep that was shot, that's when they saw the mule deer.
when they checked him in the field, yes.
Okay,
Yeah, he was originally, according to the report, he was seen by a reporting party, shooting the one, walking up to it, looking at it, and then leaving it and walking away. And then later on harvested, shot and took the other one with him. And when the officers went out, that's when they discovered the deer.
To clarify, Colonel Single, he had 3 animals in possession in the same incident, correct?
So the one he shot and left and walked away, so that's why it's a waste of game. We don't have an unlawful possession charge of that one. Presumably we couldn't make it that he picked it up or loaded it, so he just looked at it and left it. So no waste of game, but that's one animal, yes. And then later shot and killed the second one that he took. That's the exceeding, so animal 2 possessed it. And then the mule deer, animal 3, yes.
and there was a witness who saw him shoot that animal when he went to check it.
Correct.
Okay,
Is there any further discussion for Colonel Single? Any further questions? And increasing the verification period from 3 to 5 years for Victor Corral.
I'd like to make a motion that we hereby accept make another motion, that we hereby accept the revocation list presented by Colonel Symbol, with the exception of Victor Corral, and his penalty will be 5 years, not 3 years on the revocation.
Is there,
Mr. Vice Chair,
Second.
is that an amendment to the original?
It's an amendment to the original,
Thank you.
based on now the discussions.
Does the original second accept the amendment?
Yes, I assume up to second amendment.
Thank you.
all those in favor? Mr. Secretary, would you please call the roll, please, General?
Commissioner Salazar Hickey,
Yes,
Commissioner Folker,
Yes.
Commissioner Clemente,
Yes.
Vice Chair Lopez,
Yes.
motion passes.
Thank you, Colonel, and your staff for the great work they are doing out there and getting this evidence for this before us, as well as doing their jobs very well. Thank you so much.
Vice Chair, Commissioners, thank you.
We will next go on to our next agenda item number 6, which is our favorite item here at Municipal Game and Fish and State Game Commission, where we get to hear from the members of the public and feel what the boots on the ground, the public are seeing, doing, and thinking. So we will start off with our general public comment. We limit it to 3 minutes per person. Our staff here will keep the time. We do ask you to stay within that 3 minutes. If you do need to go, please just let us know. And we will go with Garth Reader will be our first public comment like this morning.
Good morning. I'd like to provide my, first of all, correct here, 3217 William Road, Los Alamos, New Mexico. I'd like to provide my input on 3 issues for your consideration. The first is stream access. It's been almost a year since the New Mexico Supreme Court issued its written ruling regarding public access to New Mexico waters, and there are still many questions requiring clarification. I had hoped that the state would have provided guidance and clarification, particularly regarding stream access and trespass. A detailed synopsis of the ruling should have been addressed in the 23-24 Fishing Rules and Information publication. However, what was published was vague and no different than in previous years. I've reached out to the New Mexico Department of Game and Fish Field Operations, as well as Colonel Temple here, for direction. While responsive, there has not been any real clarification regarding trespassing. Protect landowners and to minimize potential conflicts, tangible trespass definitions are needed. Just like a fence, a recognizable boundary between legal stream access and trespass needs to be made widely known. It is recognized that there is discretion in enforcing trespass. However, incidental trespass is vague and ripe for abuse. Landowners have a right to control use on their own properties, and the New Mexico Supreme Court recognized this when they stated in their ruling, quote, "We stress that the public may neither trespass on privately owned land or access public water while accessing public water, nor trespass on privately owned land from public water." Yet this information was not included in the fishing rules in the information publication. Additionally, there is disparity with accessing other waters in the state. Particularly of note is the Wise Furbearer, which requires a special use permit and a fee. It is assumed that tribal access also has stipulations. Why can other entities control access to public waters on their properties if private landowners cannot? Hopefully, concrete direction will be forthcoming soon on these and other issues, including fence out, landowner liability, post-stream requirement, and others. My second item I'd like to address is E+. I'd like to voice my support for this important conservation and management program in its present form. There are many detractors that do not appear to recognize the benefit of the program. We'll offer alternatives to incentivize conservation. The negative views held by some regarding E+ are not necessarily held by others, so I feel it is important that you hear a supporting opinion. My third item, big game dry odds reporting. While the current dry odds report for big game hunting is somewhat beneficial for hunters in their application planning, it does not provide a total picture. It would be valuable to provide additional information so that the public can gain more insight into their chance of drawing. Providing the ranking of applicants, as well as when each hunt is filled as a function of the ranking, would give additional perspective. To fully show probabilities of being selected for a particular hunt, a true Monte Carlo simulation could be performed. Providing this type of information for the public would help with understanding big game draws. Thank you for your time, consideration, and your service.
Thank you, Mr. Reader.
Thank you.
Our next public comment would be Linda Bird.
Good morning. I'll just read through this. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
There are a few points I'd like to make. I believe we should lower the quotas on bears and cougars, not raise them first. I've been here for 50 years. I came in 1973 from back east. That's me. I live in rural New Mexico and the so-called urban rural intersection. I've talked to many neighbors and friends on the subject of raising quotas on bears and cougars. And I've lost my place. And I actually haven't come across anyone who was in favor of that. These are people who like to live out there. We're up against the national forest and we enjoy having wildlife. And whether we run into a bear or a cougar, it's never been a problem. And we need predators to maintain a healthy environment. So that's the main point. Also, I oppose trophy hunting altogether, both bears and cougars. And they do self-regulate, and so killing few or fewer is not a problem, but killing many could impact populations for a long time. Next point. Wildfires and droughts are here, or they're due to human-caused climate change. I don't see where this massive impact has been considered in habitat or population estimates. So lower quotas, not raise them. Also, New Mexico does not have a long-term on-the-ground field study or studies throughout the state that could indicate population trends, which it needs. All human killed bears and cougars, including those killed for raiding trash cans, preying on livestock to protect bighorn sheep, as well as roadkill. All these must be counted forward. All this must be counted toward meeting quotas. Both bears and cougars are hunted using dogs, which exhaust them, causing them to seek safety in climbing trees. Then the hunters come and shoot them point blank range. Many surveys of the general public consider this contrary to fair chase. I believe New Mexico Game and Fish should consider broad public opinion and adopting hunting rules that ban the use of dogs in cougar and bear hunting. Thanks very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Bird. Okay. Is there any further public comment cards presented? Seeing none, we will go into executive session.
Vice Chair Lopez, we do have quite a few online.
Online. Okay. Mr. Ryan Dar, I'll let you.
Thank you, and we will start with the individual with a phone number ending in 1095. Okay, you have been unmuted, so please unmute your phone and you are free to speak.
Good morning, Commissioners. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you so much. I'm Mary Catherine Ray. I'm the Wildlife Chair for the Rio Grande chapter of the Sierra Club, and I'm calling from our home in the outback of Socorro County. I'm also commenting on the ongoing bear and cougar rule review. We are very concerned that even the current hunting quotas are too high, and rather than raising them, they should be lowered across the board. While the department's density studies appear scientifically sound, the agency has not been transparent in how those densities have been applied to the larger geographic area to estimate overall populations of bears and cougars. And if those population estimates are too high, the kill quotas will also be too high. Moreover, we are indeed in a drought more severe than any in the last 1,200 years, and we may be living right now in the hottest month on planet Earth for the past 100,000 years. Who knows how much worse the wildfires and lack of rainfall will be in the coming 4 years. Drought impacts the food that bears and cougars rely on. Even finding water when the springs go dry becomes a challenge. To think this does not affect bear and cougar numbers defies credulity. Importantly, all of the density studies are only a single snapshot in time. There are no studies year to year to show how populations are trending or what effect hunting or increasing heat is having. These animals could already be in decline, and we would not know. Bears and cougars are apex carnivores, meaning they did not evolve to be preyed upon. Both species are self-limiting. For this reason, the risk of killing too many is real. The damage can be long-lasting, and certainly would be contrary to conservation. I'm asking you to please ask the department for an alternative proposal that lowers the bear and cougar kill quotas, at least until more transparency is forthcoming and more knowledge about population trends is known. We will be sending extensive written comments, and I thank you in advance for considering them.
Thank you. And next, we have Charles Fox. Charles, please unmute.
All right, I am unmuted. You can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Right, thank you. I would like to comment also on the bear and cougar rule proposal. And I think scientific and technical issues aside, I kind of like to focus on values. And I think state wildlife policy should reflect our values as a society. We're largely a mutualistic society now, which means live and let live in some manner of respectful coexistence. Both bears and cougars are native to New Mexico, and they belong on this landscape in ecologically significant numbers. I don't believe that the game department has demonstrated a constructive purpose for the proposal, killing more bears and cougars. I think that proposals like this tend to illustrate that game department values are not in alignment with modern society. I think the continued recreational killing of wildlife is difficult to justify in an age of mass extinctions, megafires, and persistent drought. I believe this proposal is misguided and destructive and should be dropped. Thank you.
Next, we have Nina Eidelman. Nina, you are open to speak.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Good morning, members of the commission. My name is Nina Edelman. I represent Animal Protection New Mexico. I thank you for the opportunity to speak on the proposed bear and cougar rule through general public comment. The purpose of the rule is to maintain sustainable bear and cougar populations. However, based on the data we've received from the department, there is not enough information to reliably determine what sustainable harvest limits are. Critical to determining a sustainable harvest limit is having a reliable estimate of the population growth rate. To determine growth rate, we need estimates of population density in a given area across multiple consecutive years. For cougars, there's currently only one population density estimate for one study area. For bears, there are a handful of population density estimates, I believe only 3 or 4 for just a few study areas. However, in both the cougar and bear studies, data was only collected for 1 year, so a growth rate cannot be determined. The study areas were also of primary bear and cougar habitat, so any estimates derived from these areas cannot be used to extrapolate estimates for statewide where habitat quality varies. There is also no indication that the department accounted for the effects of climate change, persistent drought, or historic wildfires into habitat or population estimates. While bears and cougars can generally bounce back quickly after low severity fires, higher severity fires like the Cap Canyon and Herbert's Peak and black fires leave a barren landscape for wildlife. Both bears and cougars have relatively long lifespans but low reproduction rates, resulting in slow population growth rates. Until we have reliable and recent on-the-ground data for bear and cougar population trends across several consecutive years in study areas representative of the diverse habitats in the state, bear and cougars need to be managed very conservatively, and the harvest limits for both must be reduced if the goal is to have sustainable populations for many years to come. Any proposed harvest limits must also account for all human-caused mortality, not just hunting, but also depredation, vehicle strikes, and any other human-caused mortality. We will be submitting extensive written public comments as well, so I very much thank you for your consideration and deliberation on this rule. Thank you.
Thank you. And next we have Dan Warren. Dan, you are open to speak.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to say a few words about the department's proposed rule changes regarding harvest of bears and cougars. My name is Dan Warren, and I'm lucky enough to live in a very remote area of the Black Range, not far from the Aldo Leopold Wilderness of the Gila National Forest. I have lived here for over 12 years and have been using multiple trail cameras for the last 3 years. During my time here, there has only been one conflict with a bear that I am aware of. There have been 3 other encounters with black bears and humans on the east side of the Black Range and the Continental Divide that I am aware of. In one instance, a person living just below Hermosa on Palomas Creek killed a bear when it got into his grain that had been stored for his livestock. Apparently, the grain was not stored in a secure method. The bear got into it, kept coming back for more, and the nuisance bear was killed. The bear did not attack the livestock. A second bear was killed at the Old Dines Ranch when an outfitter's client successfully killed a bear that had come to the ranch watering tank. In 2006, I saw a young bear for about 5 seconds before the bear realized we were humans and ran away as fast as the bear could. Just a month ago, for the first time in 3 years in running cameras, I recorded a large black bear on a trail camera along the creek. This was only the second bear I have seen on this property in 17 years. Just a month ago, I am very concerned that the population of bears has greatly diminished. Fortunately, we now have regulated landfills that are available to get rid of our garbage. If everyone would do this, fewer conflicts would occur. I have never had a conflict with a bear, a bobcat, a coyote, a fox, a skunk, a raccoon, nor a cougar, despite these animals living all around me. Increasing harvest levels must be based on good scientific data. This is also true for cougars. The department's online proposal is, in my opinion, very superficial and does not provide any references to any specific scientific reports, nor a companion technical supporting document. Cougars have been studied in the Black Range since the 1930s, and at least a decade of studies have been done in the Black Range in the last 10 years or so. Much of it just down the road at Hermosa. Where are the specific supporting technical data? For the Gila, you must take into account the effects of last year's Black Fire, the largest single forest fire in the history of New Mexico. Food supplies for bears and other wildlife were incinerated. Drought conditions have been very severe, and springs and creeks had run dry in many areas. Last year's summer rains did help some, but the monsoons are just not prevalent so far this summer. I have yet to see a 1/4-inch rain this summer at my place. Thank you. And I also will be submitting some written comments.
Thank you, Mr. Warren. Next, we have John Crenshaw. John, you are approved to speak.
Thank you. I'm John Crenshaw. I'm president of the New Mexico Wildlife Federation and former chief of the Game and Fish Department's Information and Education Division. My comments and questions relate to public use of public waters under the recent state's Supreme Court decision, and I appreciate the previous speaker's comments as I've kind of been ranting about this for several times now. What I would like to do is ask that Director Sloan relay to the commission and to the public any steps the agency has taken to initiate public outreach and to seek input on transitioning to public use of the public waters where they flow through the private lands. Now, surely the department's getting some of the same questions that I personally, the Federation staff, and many others have been getting, and these are just a small sampling. What constitutes recreation when it comes to using those public waters? Fishing, floating, swimming, and wading are pretty obviously okay, but we've also gotten questions like these. What about hunting? Bird watching, horseback riding, ATVs. What are the boundaries of legal use? If it's high water mark, how is that defined? Can I legally go above it to get around unsafe stretches of water? Are irrigation ditches and canals through private land also open? What about arroyos when they're dry? Can I camp along the stream? If so, where? How do I deal? How does the department deal with a fence and no trespassing sign blocking access to a river I know is open to public use? And I'll personally pose a really big question here. What are the gaps in the agency's leadership and enforcement authorities that would help them assume a leadership position? And what steps need to be taken to fill those? Now, that's just a sampling. Now, the Game and Fish Department can look to other state statutes, rules, and policies for guidance. Montana's a really good place to start. The commission and department also have attorneys who could help answer many questions. State Parks Division, as representing the voter, should very much be enlisted. I tried to contact them and I did not get a call back. The department has a very well-developed public input process. It's used successfully on highly controversial issues in the past. Extensive amendments to the private land elk and antelope systems are examples. Let's put it to work again here. I know Wildlife Federation would fully engage, and I'm sure other stakeholders from across the spectrum also would participate. But the stakeholders don't have the resources and we don't have the authorities to take the lead and to put out answers to those questions with authority behind it. So all of us, the public users and the landowners and the guides and outfitters all alike, we all badly need the state's leadership as an authoritative information source. I know from long personal experience as an information officer that when there's an information vacuum, misinformation and willful disinformation rushes in to fill it. That's happening now. And let's face it, that sets the stage for conflict, even potentially violence between users and landowners. So again, I'd ask for the director to update us on what's been done, being done, and we're planned for to move this transition along in the interest of the public and safety of all the stakeholders. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment. Next, we have Elizabeth Sherry. Elizabeth, you are open to speak.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Okay. Good morning, commissioners. My name is Elizabeth DeSherry. I live in Valencia County, and I also own property. We own property up in Taos County, north of Cuesta, near the Latier Wilderness. I am concerned about the proposed bear and cougar rule. And I did go to the meeting on Tuesday night in Albuquerque at the Game Commission meeting. So I did see the slides and I did see the research that was presented. But I'm still very concerned. First of all, I'm going to be very specific of the things I'm most concerned about. First of all, the change, and this is a quote from the proposed rule, to change zone closure requirements such that zone close when the female harvest limit is reached in response to updated pelt tag reporting procedures. So the current rule is to close the zone at 90% harvest. They want to go to 100% harvest. That is very, very concerning. Obviously, that means that it's very likely that other people are going to go, you're going to have more like 110% harvest. It's not right to go to 100%. Keep it at 90%. Obviously, the harvest limits need to be decreased, and everybody's talked about that. The other concern I have is the length of the seasons and the season start date. For cougars, the season is year-round, and that's ridiculous. Honestly, we need if you're going to do a cougar season, it should have limits. For bears, some of the zones, the season starts in August, and that is a horrific time to start any hunting season, especially here in New Mexico, when you're looking at non-consumptive users out there and you're looking at climate change and you're looking how hot it is. And here you are you're starting bear and cougar hunts and so early. So I think that needs to change. Also, little to no consideration has been given on the proposed changes to the yearlings, cubs, and kittens when a mother is harvested, because sometimes those cubs or kittens are in dens. And so if you harvest a female bear, for example, it's possible that you're actually killing a few more bears if those cubs are left unattended. The other part of this, and it doesn't mention it at all, is poaching. And we just heard about poaching just a little bit ago when you were talking about revocations. And that was not considered, as far as I know, in the other category. So if we're gonna do cougar and bear hunts, I think we need to look at all of these, and we need to be fair, and we need to restructure the proposal to be fair to bears and cougars. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Dar.
We have no additional online comments.
Is there any additional public comments from the public present? Okay, thank you, staff, and thank you, members of the public and those who have commented online as well. We appreciate your opinions, and we greatly do consider what you do say and what is in our rulemaking process. We will get a vote to agenda item number 7.
Vice Chair, I would like to move to adjourn into executive session, close to the public pursuant to section 10-15-1, paragraph H8, NMSA 1978, to discuss property issues, property purchase, acquisition, or disposal pursuant to section 10-15-1, paragraph H8, New Mexico statute annotated 1978, to discuss attorney-client privilege of litigation update.
Thank you, Commissioner. Is there motions or second?
I will move to second the motion.
Okay. Is there a second?
Mr. Chair, if I could, this for going into closed session under 8. H8.
Property and attorney-client privilege. Thank you, sir.
I have a correction to the motion.
Thank you.
Mr. Secretary, will you call the roll call?
Commissioner Salazar Hickey,
Yes.
Commissioner Fulker,
Yes.
Commissioner Clemente,
Yes.
Vice Chair Lopez.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, we'll be in executive session. Welcome back, folks. The commission adjourned the executive session. Closed to the public. During the executive session, the commission discussed all of those matters specified in its motion to adjourn and took no action as to any matter.
Mr. Chair, I understand based upon discussions in closed session that the commission would like to entertain a motion with respect to item 7A1 on the agenda, specifically a motion to approve the sale to the city of Santa Fe of record 22-202, disposition of Richards Avenue property for not less than the agreed upon appraised value. Do I have a motion?
That is the motion. Thank you.
Is there a second?
No. Second motion.
Mr. Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Salazar Hickey,
Yes.
Commissioner Fulker,
Yes.
Commissioner Clemente,
Yes.
Vice Chair Lopez.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, I also understand based upon discussions in closed session that the commission would like to entertain a motion for, with respect to item 7A2, that to partner with the city of Raton to purchase the Bartlett Mesa property record 23-102 using available federal funds to purchase said property from the Nature Conservancy.
That is correct, Mr. Attorney General. Is there a second?
Second. Well, my vote, the chair, vice chair.
So I'll go ahead and move to motion the motion being discussed with.
I'll second.
Mr. Secretary, on a motion and a second, would you please take the roll, please?
Commissioner Salazar Hickey,
Yes.
Commissioner Fulker,
Yes.
Commissioner Clemente,
Yes.
Vice Chair Lopez.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Finally, Mr. Chair, members of the commission, I understand from discussions in closed session that the commission wishes to entertain a motion with respect to item 7B2 on the agenda to initiate litigation through the Attorney General's office, working with Department of Game and Fish staff to initiate litigation regarding the Brook Clancy Wildlife Management Area, record 23-101 San Miguel County. Do we have a motion? Is there a motion?
That is my motion.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
So move to second the motion.
Mr. Secretary, would you please take the roll, please?
Commissioner Salazar Hickey,
Yes.
Commissioner Folker,
Yes.
Commissioner Clemente,
Yes.
Vice Chair Lopez.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Mr. President, there's no further action items that are coming on closed session.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney General, for your assistance and the executive session as well, open session regarding the action items. Okay, we'll go on to our next agenda item with the migratory third rule, NMAC 19.31-6. Okay. This chair will please come to order. My name is Chirito Lopez, Vice Chair of the Commission. I will be serving as the hearing officer and be advised by the Commission's counsel from the Office of Attorney General. The purpose of this hearing is for the Commission to receive public comment on repealing and replacing the Migratory Game Bird Rule, Title 19, Chapter 31, Part 6, New Mexico Administrative Code, which has become effective on April 1st, 2023. These hearings are conducted in accordance with the provisions of the Game and Fish Act and the State Road Act. The hearings are also being audio taped and video recorded. Anyone interested in a copy of the audio tape or video recording shall contact Ryan Dar with the New Mexico Department of Game and Fish. Public notice of this hearing was advertised in the New Mexico Register, the New Mexico Sunshine Portal, and on the department's website. Copies of the proposed amendment have been available on the department's website. Those wishing to comment here today must have registered to submit public comments. Actually, the rule will be conducted in the following manner. Staff will present pre-checked exhibits. Exhibits of evidence are available for review by the public on the department's website. After all exhibits are entered, we will proceed with the presentation of the proposed rule, after which testimony will be taken from the audience. Note if a large number of persons can testify, you may place a limit time. Right up with.
Excuse me?
You set up?
Yeah.
Okay. Here we go, the hearing. Not right, Chief.
Mr. Vice Chair, members of the Commission, I do wish to submit some exhibits into the record. Exhibit number 1 is a copy of the proposed rule and what we did in the summary to the notice to the record. Exhibit 2, the presentation I'll be giving today. Exhibit 3, the public comments we received during the rulemaking process. Exhibit 4, the technical information we relied upon to develop the rule. And Exhibit 6, a copy of the rule.
Mr. Reserve, Exhibit 5. Did I miss something?
I think you meant 5.
I'm in 5. I must have, I apologize.
Okay. And Mr. Reed, is there, are we putting in the record so that it reflects that the notice was given to the public?
Yes, that was exhibit number 1.
Okay.
The notice of the rulemaking.
Okay.
Still can you introduce the proposed amendments to 19.1.6.
So again, this is the final portion of this rulemaking hearing. We adjust these seasons in accordance with the Fish and Wildlife Service with the federal frameworks. You've heard these at the last couple of meetings. We adjust the bag limits, possession limits, dates according to what's allowable in the Federal Register as well. This is an annual rulemaking hearing, and what we're doing here is we're planning on changes to the regular migratory bird seasons based off our public comments and dates. And then we will also, with that, there's no changes in the sandhill train permit numbers. We have pintail bag limit that's going to remain at 1 for this upcoming migratory bird season. That's in accordance with the federal regulations, and then no changes to the dove seasons. We did receive public comments, 5 public comments received to the rule hearing. We did have 2 public meetings, or excuse me, a hybrid public meeting, and that was on April 26th. 2 members of the public did attend. The comments we received, some of them are not applicable because it would take federal action. It's not action you all can take, such as duck stamp requirements, north and south zone opening dates. For example, on our season splits that we currently allow. And then also we have a comment on shifting the snipe season later. That's something that we could take into account for the next rule cycle. That would take federal action, but we would work with the federal government to potentially look at that for next season. But for this season, the frameworks would not allow for that. And so I could go through the specific dates if you wish, but you all heard these at two previous meetings. So with that, I would take any questions that you all may have.
Would anyone like to comment on proposed amendments to 19.31.6?
Mr. Vice Chair, I would like to say thank you to the Department of Game and Fish for the work that they've done in making these proposed changes, but I would also like to thank the members of the public for expressing their comments and coming forward. That's all I have. Thank you.
Is anyone in the audience like to ask any questions of the witness? Are there any exhibits from the public that need to be entered into the record at this time? Okay. Exhibits entered by Chief Librarian 1 through 5 are also admitted into the record. Those that registered and participate in the hearing will be included in the item sheet. At this time, the item sheets will be marked and admitted as exhibit
6, but there isn't one.
There is no 6. The comments submitted and testimony heard during this rule hearing will be reviewed by the commission and discussed during an open session of today's meeting. The commission will vote on the proposed amendment this time. I want to thank everybody present for the participation today. Let the record show the people making hearing was adjourned at 11:35 a.m. July 21st, 2023.
Mr. Chair, now it's up to you to the commission to discuss and make a motion.
Is there any discussion on the migratory bird rule?
Mr. Vice Chair, I would like to move to repeal and replace 19.31.6 NMAC as presented by the department and allow the department to make minor corrections to comply with filing this rule with state records archives.
You have a motion, is there a second?
I will second the motion.
Secretary, would you please take the vote, please?
Commissioner Salazar-Hickey,
Yes.
Commissioner Polk,
Yes.
Commissioner Clemente,
Yes.
Vice Chair Lopez.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. We'll now go again to Chief Lively, action item number 11 on the agenda, or we have 10? Type on the agenda.
11, I believe.
11.
Further, 19.32.2 NMAC discussion.
Mr. Vice Chair, members of the commission, this is the first time that you've heard this in front of you. This is our Furbearer rule, as you say, 1932.3 or 1932.2, excuse me, I apologize. Just a real quick on the timeline, like we do with any of our rule development, I want to give you in the public a process of how we would approach this. We are presenting it today, opening up kind of we'll give you our initial proposed amendments to the rule, and then we'll come back to you all in August with what the department's final recommendations are. And then from that point, if the commission has any direction to the department on other amendments they'd like to see, etc., we could take that back and draft the draft rule, post a notice to the record, to the register, and then also we would come back and then final action on the rule would occur in October. So that's kind of the process we would look at. We'll get into this in a second, but we have one minor proposed change on this. But I want to give you a little bit of background on the rule itself. So it regulates the harvest of furbearers across the state. We only harvest abundant populations, so there is a statute provision that lists the protected furbearers within the state of New Mexico. There are many furbearers that are protected under statute that we do not allow harvest. So it's zero harvest. We don't have an open season. We are not recommending opening any new seasons or recommending any of our changes to the bag limits, etc., in our furbearer rules right now. For example, on species like pine marten, quadrumunda, river otter, we do not believe those populations can sustain additional harvest. So we're going to keep that as a closed season, propose keeping those as closed seasons. The rule also establishes a season length and a limited window for harvest. So we do not have a specific bag limit on a species. We regulate that through harvest and take through season length and timing. That's the better approach that we've found to determine what's sustainable and to ensure sustainable going through. It's not a necessarily data bag limit, but a season timing and length that allows for the populations to be sustainable. The other aspect of it, we do have mandatory reporting requirements. So if anyone that purchases a Furbearer license must report their hunting and trapping activities to us on an annual basis and must report their take so we can monitor and track that take through time to see if there's trends occurring that be outside the norm. Do we see a spike in harvest? Do we see a decline in harvest? Is that representative of what we would think with the population given current climatic conditions, et cetera? So we do track that from a harvest standpoint on an annual basis, looking at what our populations are doing through time. The other aspect that is in this rule that's really unique to other rules, and I'll get to what our proposed changes are at the end of this, is the director does have the ability to set a bag limit for a species of Furbearer on an annual basis that we deem is necessary. So if we deem that take a swift fox, for example, over the last season, or something happened to the swift fox population is such that we need to set an annual bag limit or a bag limit for that species, the director has the ability to do that with concurrence with the chair. You all, for the rest of our rules, we just approved in the bag limits on an annual basis or on every 4-year basis for the rest of the species. This is a check provision in there because we do not have bag limits in there that if we determine that it's biologically necessary, it allows the director to set those then reset every year when be necessary. So it's just a provision in there. Again, I'll get to some of the data. We don't see any need for bag limits right now. We think our season lengths and structures have allowed for sustainable populations of Furbearers on the landscape, if not growing Furbearer populations on the landscape. The last point there, and you'll see this when we get to some of the data here in a bit, the state legislature did put through in the 2021 legislative session a ban on trapping on public lands. Trapping was precluded on public lands. It went into effect in 2022. That has reduced take of Furbearers through time. You'll see that in the data. I think we've seen reduced Furbearer license sales as well for other reasons versus fur value, et cetera. But we do see a reduction in harvest in the last few years on our Furbearer populations. I don't think it's due to, and we'll get to the data, it's not due to necessarily decreasing Furbearer populations, but decreasing take of those Furbearers is what's coming. Again, here's our protected Furbearers that we do allow harvest on it. Here's the 4-year harvest trends. You'll see in 2021, 2022, harvest dropping off fairly significantly for some of our species, especially our 2 highest species of take. Our 2 highest protected species that are normally of take is gray fox and bobcat. You'll see there in 2019, about 1,300 going down to 350 to 300 roughly the last year. So a significant drop in take in the last couple of years. Again, I think there's a couple of things working on here. I think some of it is the implementation of the trapping ban on public lands had an impact on that, absolutely. I think you also had some on market value of fur, as well as having some on increased cost to partake in a longer trapping season. In 2021, we did have trapping still on public lands, but the cost of fuel was probably prohibitive for a lot more participation. What you see here is just because those 2 species, those are the 2 protected species where we see or have seen historically the highest take. In there, you'll see that there's been a higher that 2007, 2008, a little bit of 2007, just as a point of clarification. That probably isn't all biological. That partly is when mandatory harvest occurred, and then we had some double reporting in there. We fixed that bias in there, so that bar is a little bit high, partially due to double reporting of people that didn't understand the new system on mandatory. You'll see it fairly consistent after that 29 to about 20, 2018 or so harvest with a little bit of a dip in the 2014-15, and then you do see a pretty precipitous drop in the 2019 through the last season. And I think multiple reasons could explain that, but we are seeing a decrease in our harvest. One of the things we wanted to look at too, and this is cursory to some other research that we've been looking at on cougars. Specifically, this is in Cougar Management Zone Q. That's a Guadalupe Mountains going into the Cloudcroft up in the Sacramento Mountains. We put out hundreds. I think we had 120 cameras roughly in an array of grids across the landscape, trying to get detections on cougars that we had radio plotted for our research purposes there. But we do pick up a lot of other species. What you're looking at here is years and months. That equates to like the 6, 7, 8, 9 is the numerical months. So June, July, August, September, multiple years. That's how long the cameras were out along that study period. And what is of interest of here, we don't see any real indications that we're seeing high detections of our other furbearers, coyotes, gray fox, bobcats, etc. And that's just to show those kind of trends. We wouldn't see a big downward. We were worried in that time because we had rabbit hemorrhagic disease. That was a big thing that occurred during that time period. Around 2020, rabbit hemorrhagic disease came in, killed a lot of rabbits. We know it did kill rabbits on there, and some of those furbearer populations sometimes will track that. This detection in the cameras don't really show a decrease in our detections of those furbearers that are dependent on, so we probably saw some prey switching. Again, what this kind of goes back to is we see consistent kind of detections with maybe some of an increase in those winter months, which is not surprising, some species through the period of this. But at the same time, if you go back to our last slide on looking at harvest of those species, it was declining at times. So we had consistent detections on our population, even a decrease in harvest. We did see a precipitous drop in our detections as well. And what I guess I'm getting at is, if we thought the population was declining and that's why we had a decreased harvest, then we would see that same pattern here. We don't see the pattern here where we have a decline in detections in the population while we have declines in harvest. Another way to kind of measure that is what's called catch per unit effort. It's used more in the kind of fisheries around the world, but it looks at how much effort does it take to catch or harvest a species. And the two, again, bobcat, gray fox, are the two species that furbearers, protected furbearers, that are harvested the most. As that line goes up, what you see in 2019, 2020, 21, 22, an inflection point, and it goes kind of in a steep. What that is it's saying it takes less effort to catch those animals. And so, in other words, most likely that the populations are stable and or increasing, because if the populations are declining, we would be really nervous if that had the opposite trend. If that had the opposite trend and it's taking a lot more time, a lot more effort to catch them, it probably or could be indicative of fewer animals on the landscape. Because that went the other way and it went pretty steep the other way, we have a belief that the populations are either increasing and or there's a lot less effort going on the ground, and that ties back to the licenses, I think. So if you look at that right, you'll see 2019, 2021, we had a lot fewer licenses sold. So those individuals that were out there harvesting were less people out there competing. Most likely their efforts were, it was easier for those individuals that were out there to harvest because there was fewer on the landscape, less competition. So most likely we see what our thoughts are is a stable population of bobcats and gray fox because of that. If we would have seen licenses stay flat, catch per unit effort go up a lot like that as well, you would maybe say, yes, that population is increasing, but it tracks well with license decrease, catch per effort goes way up, probably more likely the latter of a stable population through time is what we would think. Another thing we really want to look at with this, especially in our bobcat, is our sex ratio of harvest is one that we're particularly interested in. You will see there, and it can be indicative of decreasing populations too if you had fewer females being recruited into the population or males, but what you see there is pretty flat. It's fairly consistent through time of an even sex ratio, or excuse me, a male biased sex ratio in our harvest, which is good from a sustainable population standpoint. You're having more females stay on the landscape, reproduce, etc. And so, again, nothing in our sex ratio data that would be indicative of a worry about the population. The one species that I think we've had kind of more interest in from a standpoint of population size is probably lower in the swiftfox than any of our other harvested Furbearer species. We really want to get out what is kind of our populations. 4 years ago when this rule was in front of you there, that was kind of the concern from, it's not a bad number on swiftfox. We take very few. We took less than 10 swiftfox in the last couple of years on an annual basis, but we wanted to see is the population, how's it doing, how's it out there? So since that time, we went in and started a study to look at what is density of kit fox in our shortgrass prairie. They really are tied to the shortgrass prairie. What that color coding on that graph there is that brighter yellow is shortgrass prairie. The darker green is kind of more coniferous forest, moving into pinyon juniper up to even some mixed conifer, and that pink is agriculture. And so we did different, what we call SIMPO surveys, where we put out these SIMPO surveys, and these, the Furbearer will come into them and defecate at that site. We could take that scat and then go back out to genetic analysis to see what was out there, what was, one, we could type to the species level, and two, we try to type to the individual level, and then we could get capture, recapture probabilities to then go back out and estimate density over a larger landscape. And so that's kind of what we did. We saw a really high success in this project. We had collected 463 samples. Of those, 454 had significant DNA in it to where we could type to the species level, so we could determine what the species of the scat was from. The other really positive on this, we were trying to target swiftfox by the scent lures we were using and et cetera at the sites, but 98% of our samples were swiftfox. So really high proportion, about 440 of the samples we collected were swiftfox. And then of that, 87% of those could be assigned to an individual animal. We were able to genotype those back down into a single individual. This was individual X, Y, et cetera. And we had 292 detections of 58 individuals. So we saw we were able to detect them moving around the landscape as well. So that's how we were able to do our capture, recapture. And the preliminary results from that show that we're working at a density of about 9 swiftfox, per 100 square kilometers. That's very similar to what we see in the literature, what we've estimated previously, and also probably a little bit higher density than what they're detecting in Oklahoma, Texas, and a little bit in Kansas. So again, we really want to go back out there and check to see old research from a long time ago in the state that our population is doing well. So if anything, we probably have seen stabilization of the population, no decrease, nothing of a concern at this point from a swiftfox species. Again, that was the species that we were really the most concerned with at the last rule cycle. This is indicative of where they're doing fairly well, and our harvest is really low, right? 9 per 100 square kilometers. We had reported harvest of less than 10 last year across the entire state. So again, nothing of great concern. And then I'll get right to the recommendations. If you all recall, those that were on the commission previously, the Furbearer rule only sets bag limits, season days, etc. Manner and method rule discusses all how we harvest those animals, including trapping, etc. And so we're proposing going to, it historically was a permanent rule, we're proposing going back to a permanent rule, partly because we have the authority, the director has the authority to set bag limits on an annual basis if we find it's necessary from a population standpoint. We're seeing that decrease in harvest through time. And the other aspect is you as a commission have the ability to request we open a rule at any time. So if we put this, instead of coming to you and just repeating the data, we're more than happy to come and show you annual harvest data where we're at, but having to go through the formal rulemaking process when we're proposing no changes. This is a no change rule. It doesn't make a lot of sense for us to go through those formalities every 4 years. Again, if there's something where the commission desires that we want to open the rule and make changes, you have that authority at any time to do that. this just is again, going back to more of the permanent rule in this. And with that, I would take any questions you may have.
Thank you, Chief Lally, for that great presentation. Is there any questions from the commission?
I have some questions.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Mr. Lee and Chief, I really appreciate this. I'm looking at your presentation on the sweet box. Let me ask you a question. I'm going to begin with a question. Sweet box is separated from the kid fox population, correct? Species.
Mr. Vice Chair, Commissioner Clemente, yes, absolutely. They are definitely separate, live in different habitats completely. And the swift fox is in that northeast shortgrass prairie, not in the Chihuahua Desert.
Okay. And the reason why I ask is more for the public to understand that we're talking about two solid species. You mentioned something about, I had the privilege to work with the department on collecting scats for DNA testing for the sweet fox in the early 2000s, which I'm very happy to see that the population is staying stable. You guys are doing amazing work on that, maintaining that population. That is really good. One of the things that I do remember, if I recall correctly, most of the sweet foxes stays within private property, correct?
Mr. Vice Chair, Commissioner Vice Chair, Commissioner Clemente, yes, they are almost exclusively on private property. Some state land intermixed in there, a little bit of the Kiowa grasslands, but for the most part, on private property.
And so you mentioned that it was 10 animals harvested, correct, captured in the last year.
Yes, Mr. Vice Chair, Commissioner Clemente, I get to you'll see here the statewide harvest. We have never exceeded 10. We're at 2 last year, 3 the previous year, 1 the other year. So very, very low harvest rates. That's both public and private land harvest as well.
Okay. And just to add on to that, I believe landowners like that sweet fox population. So I do believe a lot of people might question 10 animals a year. We harvest especially in private property, but it is. I do believe that, and I do believe most of the landowners will protect that species. And so this data I do believe is pretty accurate, and I thank you for that. On another question that I had, so if you go back, is the game on fish taken into consideration whenever you're looking now that we don't have trapping in public lands? Looking into droughts and how the behavior of the furbearers changes, for example, raccoons, foxes, going more into urban and rural areas, and there is interaction with human population. Is that all that kept track and how whenever they get trapped by animal control or things like that?
Mr. Vice Chair, Commissioner Clemente, absolutely right. And so we have kind of separate programs. This is kind of our rule that allows us to set furbearer seasons, but we definitely respond to depredation from raccoon is a prime example. That's probably our highest depredation species. At one time, it goes between bear and raccoon, and actually Albuquerque is our highest depredation hotspot. Following river corridors, human urban interfaces right here, and those raccoons do really well. We do have seasons that would allow landowners or private individuals within the respective areas on their private land to harvest if they buy a license. There's also provisions if they don't want to buy a license, they have depredation calls, they could call the department and work with us on trying to resolve their depredation complaint or that depredation issue of raccoons, etc. A lot of it is informative, right? Don't put your trash out. Similar messaging to bears, and we work with landowners to try to reduce that conflict. And there is times where we do go into harvest, and the department is harvesting problem individuals within there as well. But yes, from all the species, I agree with you, raccoon is probably our biggest that we're seeing kind of move into that urban interface. In terms of the rest of the drought, we definitely have animals probably reconcentrating some on the landscape, using resources a little bit differently, but I don't think we've seen anything indicative of any of our cameras or harvest or catch per unit effort that says the drought really drove them down. It was like a real big downward trend. I think we've had enough to where we've seen probably a stabilization of the population, probably not necessarily growing, but nothing in our data that would suggest a population crash due to drought.
Thank you. You have answered. Thank you.
Is there any more questions for Chief Lively?
Mr. Vice Chair, I do have something. Thank you. Chief Lively, the initial proposed change is to make the tracking and Furbearer rule a permanently closed rule.
Madam, sorry. Mr. Chair, Commissioner Salazar Hickey, it would not be a permanent closed rule. It would be a rule that is a permanent rule that the commission would have the authority to open whenever they want. We would review the data every single year, the harvest data every year, and look to see if we have any issues with a bag limit that we recommend to the director if necessary. In the tenure of my career here in the department, we've never done that. We've never recommended it. Nothing has been to the point where we felt like we would need a bag limit on a species. If the department, let's say, 5 years from now came out and said we really see a shift in behaviors of the species and we need a change in the season dates, we would then recommend to the commission they open it up to change season dates. So the rule sets the bag limit and seasons, and that's virtually it. The rest of the remaining in Furbearer methods, trapping, how it happens, lives in a separate rule apart from this rule.
Okay, do you think we will see more changes like this with our other rules? Like, where the rule would be, I said permanently closed rule, but.
Mr. Vice Chair, Commissioner Salazar Hickey, no. And again, that comes back in the first statement. This rule is unique that it allows and has allowed the director to set annual bag limits if necessary on a species specific. The rest of our rules, the commission sets specific license numbers, specific harvest limits, etc. If we had a species that we didn't have a bag limit or a certain set season dates, I think we would say yes to that. But because the rest of the rules that you all deal with from a harvest standpoint do have set license numbers, do have set harvest limits, do have set dates, then we would not want to make that recommendation. But because this is very unique in how it works, that's why I have recommendations.
Thank you, Chief. I think you got my gist. Is this some kind of precedent setting? Are we going into this kind of trend? And you're saying no, it's very unique. Okay, because the species can be taken via establishment of season dates and the director can impose the bag limits. Got it. Okay. Thank you. That's all I need.
My only concern on that rule and on that recommendation, it would be, I don't know, the public being updated. Here we're talking about every 4 years. And making it as a permanent rule, that would be something that I would be a little bit concerned that are we giving enough input to or enough updating to the public for them to understand what is going on with the species.
Yeah, Mr. Vice Chair, Commissioner Communities, I understand that. I think one of the things that the department can commit to, we put our annual harvest statistics on the website, and we'll continue to do so. I think the other thing is maybe every 4 years, instead of a formal rule process, we come back to the commission and just have a discussion as to this. Presentation like this that says, here's what's happened over the last 4 years, here's what we've seen from a further management standpoint, here's where we're going. And maybe at that time, it's a discussion with the commission, is it necessary to open a rule or not, versus we have to go through that process right now, right? So the process, because the rule expires at the end of April 2024, March 31st, 2024, if we don't take action and have something formal, you wouldn't have a further season. So we're basically, this would be saying, okay, let's, if no action was taken, we would just have no harvest, no season. So I think it's easy for us to commit every 4 years to come back, give an update, or even sooner if the commission so desires. If we want to go every other year to have a presentation on what's happening with Furbearers, I think that's very easy for us to do and commit to.
Mr. Vice Chair, Commissioner Clemente and Chief, I'm going to say I echo what he just said. when I asked that question, the precedent setting, again, it is the public. Today, we had in public comment a number of people concerned about a mega rule, right? And trapping was also a couple of years ago a very controversial rule. So thank you for your answer, because you made it clear that we're not, by making it this kind of a rule, we're not dismissing the public or the input or their ability to come forward or the commission to even look at this. You're saying we can always do that with the help of the Department of Game. So.
Thank you, Chief Lighty, for this process you're going through today. I have to do public comments part here before we do adjourn. Mr. Larry. Yeah. Mr. Larry Cordova and Betty Cordova. Okay, are these comments you're about to give, are they specific roles presented?
No. Information, we came here because we read that they want to up the hunting on bears and mountain lions due to conflicts, I guess, on Rams and Centigrade.
Okay.
And we just want to say that we oppose it because I don't think we should up the hunting limits. I think we should be more educated more on how to oppose this with our wildlife.
Currently now we cannot take the comments now because it is restricted to the rule that we just went over. We will offer more opportunities in our future meetings to you can offer public comment as well, and you can also submit them to our website.
Okay.
But public comment just this morning, but you do have the opportunity to please email us, contact our department, meet with our local game wardens to get more information and also reach out to the public comment. So, but thank you for coming today though. Really appreciate it, especially the residents.
When the meetings are by the website?
Yes, sir. We do send out, our Department of Staff does send out a notice. So just sign up. Our staff can help you today to get your email and they can actually send that out to you as well.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay. We are at the tail end of our meeting here. Thank you so much, Department of Staff, for what you have done in the past and in the current meeting. I also want to thank all our staff for our recent WAPA event that occurred last week in Santa Fe. Those who were able to attend, great meeting. Those of you staffed it, those of you who organized it, and all departmental staff, great accolades that came from across the Western United States. Chiefs, please give your staff a pat on the back. They did an excellent job. Everybody was impressed. Mr. Director, the staff, again, thank you for what they're doing. And is there a motion to adjourn?
I also move to adjourn this meeting.
Is there a second?
Yes, I'll second that.
Roll call, Mike.
Doesn't have to be. If you'd like, you can do it. Mr. Chair, and just for future reference, there does not need to be a motion to adjourn.
Then we are good.
Okay.